Horror is sadly a garbage genre when you pass the age of 13. At a certain point, the scare factor just isn't enough to terrify you anymore. And this is because most horror writers don't focus on this one specific key to create something genuinely terrifying. Bridging the gap between fiction and reality. A horror movie isn't scary unless the villain feels so real it's gonna come for you next. I'm gonna cover the 3 best horror movies to reveal what they do that makes them so scary. Scream isn't just a great horror movie, it's a great movie in general. It's a slasher, it's a murder mystery, it's an action, and yes, it's a horror movie. It really has it all. The movies focus on a group of young people that get targeted by the killer Ghostface. Now, if you take Ghostface at face value, yeah, he's not that scary. Like, he is scary, but not as much as your normal horror villain. Because at the end of the day, it's usually just a high schooler wearing a Halloween costume. But it still scares us for one simple reason. It's more realistic than something like a Pennywise. We don't go about our day worrying about a clown hiding in a sewer to grab our ankles, you know? I mean, at least I don't. But we do worry about people breaking into our homes or stalking us. Because the horrifying reality is that people like Ghostface exist in real life. The first Scream movie opens with a young girl home alone talking on the phone with Ghostface. Come to find out that he's actually in her home. Any young woman could imagine that scenario. It feels so realistic that it's ingrained in our heads. Every Scream movie introduces a new piece of technology that has been popularized in real life at the release of the movie and showcases how it can be used for evil. The 4th movie showed what live streaming and internet virality can do to someone. Same with the 5th movie, the killers met through internet forums. The Scream movies focus heavily on the real-world application of horror. And that's why it works. There's nothing more terrifying than if a horror movie could be real. Menu is a very different type of horror movie. There are no scary monsters and there is no mass killers. Hell, most of the characters don't even realize that they're in danger until like halfway through the movie. The Menu is an unnerving type of horror movie. It doesn't rely on cheap jump scares to scare you, but scares you with the feeling of not knowing what comes next. Humans are naturally just afraid of the unknown. Bad horror movies rely on what we expect. That's jump scares, close-ups of gore, and scary-looking monsters. But you'll never know what comes next in The Menu. You know it's not going to be good, but you have no idea what's going to come next. In a horror movie about food, you would expect it to have a twist like, oh, the meat they've been eating the whole time has been humans, and like, they're the next victims that are going to be turned into meat. I mean, at least that's what I expected going into the movie. But no, we got a bunch of weird-looking food, a cult of chefs and cooks, and the unnerving suspense of what the next meal would be. That's what a good horror movie needs. Real suspense. Not the tense music and preparing the audience for an obvious jump scare, but to scare the audience by playing games with their head. Us works because Jordan Peele knew exactly what kind of story he wanted to tell. Too many horror movies nowadays just rely on the spectacle of the scare and neglect the overall theme of the story. Every story needs a theme, not just horror movies. Otherwise, there is no purpose to the story. Again, think of it as a bridge between fiction and reality. Without the theme, there's just no reality to the story. A horror movie needs to show something truly terrifying about our society. It needs to be about our real world, or else it's just not scary. Otherwise, the horror just stays in the movie universe because we just can't relate to it at all. Us does this wonderfully. The mother in Us is actually a tether, which is basically a clone that is tied to their real self. Except they're forced to live underground and they have no control over their lives. The mother swapped with her tether when they were kids, which made the tether to be the one that's sophisticated and the real one to be feral. This is the theme of Us, and it is very apparent in our real world. People that lived in disadvantaged areas will turn out poorly, while privileged ones will turn out better. But it isn't that one of them is born more superior, because the mother swapped in the movies proves this. The tether turns out to be sophisticated because she grew up in the good area, while the real one grew up in the poor area and turned out feral. The theme wraps everything together, fully allowing you to understand the importance of the tethers. The twist that the mother was a tether the whole time really sticks in your head, and it really makes you remember the story. Us wasn't just a story about clones trying to kill their real-life counterparts. It was a story about the inequality that starts when we're born. This bridges the gap between reality and the movie, making the movie feel real and not just the screen. If you made it this far, comment your favorite scary movie.